national.
Have they got someone calling?
No, we do have a spare call because ACT hasn't taken one. Sue Moroney.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And it's my pleasure to rise and speak to this Members' Bill, although I'm quite perplexed about why we are taking up Parliament's time debating an issue that is actually already fixed, that I think everyone has already contributed to the debate, has said, well, actually, unions, because they are democratic entities, operate in this way anyway. But it is good, though, nonetheless, to see a National Party member standing up for democratic, for the principles of democracy, because that hasn't been the case in the House lately, that democracy has seemed to take a second place to what that government thinks is right for communities such as Canterbury, for example, that democracy's taken a back seat when it comes to the good people of Canterbury and their environmental needs in their area. But nonetheless, moving on from that, I do want to thank the member for bringing this to our attention, because this is about saying, you know, when workers make that very, very important decision about going on strike, and it is the course of last resort, when they make that decision to go without their income, to not be able to pay their mortgage, to not be able to be sure that they can put food on the table for their children, that very, very serious decision, that should be a decision where they can actually ask themselves in secrecy, through a secret ballot, about whether they really want to take that course of action. And sadly, what we've heard today, Mr Speaker, is that more and more frequently under this government, workers are feeling forced to make exactly that decision. That the number of industrial disputes, it was just announced today, is at its highest level for 5 years under this government. And I think that's the issue that really does need addressing. The member Tauhanari can play around with people's right to cast a secret ballot in order to make this terrible decision, but it is a terrible decision. And it is a decision that is happening more and more frequently under this government, that workers feel forced to actually cast their vote to go on strike, to go without an income in order to fix up an inequity and an unfairness in their workplace. And no worker takes that lightly. And I speak from experience, not as far back as the 1980s, although some of it was during the 1980s, but I have more recent experience than that. And particularly the era that weighs heavily on my mind, and I hope that one day I will get to bring a private member's bill that will fix up some of the things, you know, that I've been harbouring for 20 years. Was my experience as a union organiser during the 1990s for the Nurses Union, when I know that employers stood over union members and forced them to sign pieces of paper resigning from the union, which were then faxed through, one after the other, to the union office, from rest times, so that those rest time owners could actually ensure that they could take penal rates away from people who work weekends and work nights during the 1990s under a national government, so that they could actually make more of a profit out of the care of older people and not pay for the people who had to work those unsociable hours to actually care for them properly. So I think it is very important that we continue to discuss industrial relations issues, because workers' rights, their right to actually get fair pay for the work that they do, is fundamental to, I believe, this country going forward. We haven't always done well in this country on this aspect, and sadly we are seeing more and more situations in this country where workers are voting to go on strike. Not because they feel like going without pay, not because it's a great lark for them, not because it's a holiday, but because something that their employer has done under this government has caused them such grief that they are prepared to stand up and fight for it. They're prepared to actually put their mortgage at risk. They're prepared to maybe not be able to feed their children, because the inequity that is going on in their workplace under this government is so serious that they will take that course of action. That's the real mischief that needs fixing, Mr Hanari.
Michael Woodhouse.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I just want to